Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, back again with another video, and welcome to an in-depth video where we are going to build something awesome. So this time I wanted to build an end-to-end application, wanted to use a backend somewhat and want to use frontend somewhat, and want to build an end-to-end application to give you a more overview of how to build such similar application. Now these applications are super handy in case you are attending any hackathon. These are super handy in case you want to just test out some of the project, whether it's going to work or not, and put that into production. Now for this of the video, what we'll be building up is a simple system in which authentication is there. So there is a sign up, there is a login, and once user is logged in, then he is able to perform some operations. For just the sake of example, we'll be building a classic to-do kind of a input application where you can enter some strings and that shows that string. Now again, you can call this as a course list, a to-do list, whatever that is. This is all what we'll be building up. Now for the front-end side, we will be using React for doing all of this. We will be using Tailwind CSS. Of course, this is not a Tailwind crash course, so don't expect me to do too much into the Tailwind. Basic configuration, some components will be there. That's it. Nothing much, nothing fancy. For the backend part, we are going to use Appwrite into this one. Now, Appwrite is an open source project, which you can consider loosely as an alternative for Firebase. It's a constantly upgrading project, constantly evolving. A lot of features are included into that as we go and as we talk about it. The creation rate is really high in that one. And just to give a brief overview on the Appwrite, before that, I would like to thank Appwrite for sponsoring this video. This video is sponsored by Appwrite as well. Again, this doesn't mean this is a biased video. I genuinely like the product and that's why I'm getting associated with that. Also, we have seen a lot of people using in our hackathon this Appwrite, and you will be also genuinely surprised at how good this is as an open source project, and you can contribute in this open source as well. So let me take you on to my screen and we'll walk you through that how we are going to get started with this one. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and just go into my screen. So this is the Appwrite. And in case you don't know how to install that, I created a previous video on how to installation and the configuration of Appwrite works. In this video, I'll just create a project and we'll walk you through with a couple of steps that you should really know. First, let's set up our backend part. So this is the Appwrite. It's available on localhost :8t once you have installed and dockerized it. And then you can simply go ahead and create a project. I'm going to go ahead and create a project. You can actually create a project ID yourself, or you can just auto-generate it. I'm going to call this one as, let's just call this as simply YouTube, because this video is going to go on YouTube. And by the way, this video is a bit longer one and a bit chilled and relaxed one. So go ahead and take your time. I'll be sipping some water. Initially, I thought to do it live, but then it's a bit late in night. So I thought let's publish it tomorrow. Okay, so we have our YouTube project. Let me give you a brief overview and tour of the Appwrite. That once you create a project, you can have your database, you can have your storage, you can have your users, and you can also have your functions. So you can do a lot here. We have the webhooks, APIs, and everything available as well. Now, if you go into the settings, this is where you find your project ID and your API endpoint. This will be used in the configuration file. So we'll be using that. You can also update your project logo here. And if you go back, there are API keys and webhooks available. So in case you want to do something using webhooks, you are completely able to do that. Now we'll be going into the database section because that's what we want to use. Let's add a database and call this as to-do, to-dos is fine, whatever that is. So let's go ahead and create that. Now, once you create a database, each database comes in the setting its own database ID so that you know which database you are connected with. And once in that, each database has a set of collections. So let's go ahead and create a collection. I'm going to call this one as simply to-do. So this is a to-do collection, and this is the setting where you are having this. So you need to set read access and write access for all of that. So we'll be saying that I want a role of all. So this is what we have for the read access, and we'll be saying a role : all for the write access. So everybody can read and write this database. Of course, we'll be putting it behind the authentication so that not anybody can actually come and do that. Now, apart from this, you can see there are documents, and this to-do document has an ID. So this is the collection ID. We'll be using this as well. So make sure you keep a note of all of these IDs. Also, we need to add an attribute. So when you insert data into the database in Appwrite, you obviously have to tell what kind of data you are looking forward. So if I go ahead and add an attribute, These are the list of attributes. I think these are more than enough for anyone. So we have string, integer, float, boolean, URL, email, IP, enum, all these things are there. I'll be going just for basic and string. So string attribute. So what should we call this one as? To do? Yeah, that's fine. Size, let's go with 256. Required, you can turn it on, although, yeah, that would be great, but I'll just go with that. Default value, nothing, so let's just go ahead and create that. So we have created just a to-do string, and now we can programmatically create more documents and add these attributes. So you can imagine if you want to take more information from the user, maybe it's mobile number or something more on the sign number, maybe their country code, state, whatever that is, you can actually go ahead and add that. You can also go ahead and change this if you make up your mind like that. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is all. This is all you gotta do to set up your database. As complex as you want, as easy as you want, you can go ahead and set this up. Now we also have storage and users. We will be using users eventually. You don't need to set up much in that. If you click on the settings, the email password and magic URL and anonymous, all of them are already turned on. You can use them, but it's equally easy, and you can check out the OAuth as well. You can enable anything like LinkedIn. Obviously, you need keys for that. Microsoft, GitLab, Google, whatever. You just need the client ID, client secret, and that's it. It's just click and go. So this is how we'll be going with that. Okay. So this is all what we have. And again, you can check all of your projects from here. I think that is all what we have. You can also get equal amount of analytics, how many times your requests are being, so that you know that whether you need to upgrade your machine on the back end or something. So that is all. Okay, so let me minimize this. We'll come back onto the Tailwind part as well in a minute. First, let's go ahead and we can actually close this one as well. Let's go ahead and create a new folder because this is going to go. So this one is Appwrite auth to do. Yep, bit a longer name, but this is what we'll be doing. Let me fire up my VS Code so that we can have all of this. So this is the VS Code. Let's drag and drop this one up here. Yep, please allow everything. Fresh new machine, so everything is just there. Okay, so let me go ahead and open up a terminal because I think that would be better and easier for visual perspective. Okay, looks great. So let's go on to desktop, and here we want to go, yes, please allow. You want to go into Appwrite, and here we want to generate a new React project. So we're going to say npx create React app, and we just want to generate an app here itself. So we're going to just say, okay, so let me kill this one. We need to give a name, forgot that. Npx create React app, and we'll be saying Appwrite dash auth dash to do, and we want to generate it in the same directory, so we should be all good. Following packages, yes, please go ahead and install that. Shouldn't take much of the time, should be fairly easy and simple. Okay, I should have actually done that in the previous step so that we don't have another folder inside it. But again, these things do happen. Let me fast forward this step so that you don't have to watch this entire bar to flow in. All right, so it's all done, and now we can actually go into this. So I'll just run rest of the commands from the inbuilt terminal. First, let me go ahead and open this up. This was not needed, honestly. Let me go ahead and organize these structures for the sake of good. Replaced by an item, yep. Okay, so let me just drag and drop this one as of now. We'll rearrange and structure it a little bit later. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's see what's inside the package.json. So we have React, React DOM, React script, and the web vitals. We need to install a few packages before we go ahead and move into doing anything else. So the first thing that we're going to do is install Appwrite itself. So we're going to say npm install. Let's go with Appwrite because that is required for this one. We'll be also needing a React router DOM because we'll be navigating through a lot of things. We will also need UUID to create unique IDs, and I think that's majorly what we need as of now. Okay, so we have React DOM, React router DOM, we have React scripts UUID, Appwrite is also there. So I think that's it. That's pretty much it, what we need as of now for the main dependencies. Let's go up onto the browser, and we also want to install Tailwind CSS. So we have already just go ahead, and I did start a quick research, not research, just a Google search, that go ahead and install Tailwind CSS onto this one. So it says, hey, create your project. Already done that. Now we need to install this, all of this. So let's go ahead and copy that, move back up here, paste this up. So it installed this as a dev dependency. Let me show you that. There we go. So we have dev dependency, and we need to create now config files of that. So that is what this command is, npx tailwind init-p. There we go. And let's go ahead and paste this and run this. And this by default does everything for you. So all the modules are imported, all the config files and everything is also there. So in case you're looking for the post config, I think there is nothing much needed. And here also there is nothing much needed. So we can just close this. This is all done, all boilerplate that comes up out of the box. Now, one more thing we have to do is import this. So let's go ahead, and I can copy this. Yep, copied. So let's go into index.css and add this one. So let's go into index.css, and into the index.css already there are a few files, and I think we can remove all of this. We don't need it. Let's go ahead and remove this and import all the Tailwind utilities up here. Okay, now apart from this, what I'll give you here is, let me go ahead and close this one, open up the console. I want to create a new file, so I'm going to be using touch command for that, because sometimes it automatically creates files inside the directories. I don't like that. So I'm going to call this one as files. Files is fine, .jsx. This is where all of the files that I want to give you are going to be coming in. So just open up this file.jsx, and when you download this project from the GitHub itself, then you'll be able to find this up here. So let me go ahead and paste this up. Now what this file is all about, this file actually gives you a whole lot of components that are available there. Now these components will help you to fast forward this process, because this is not a Tailwind CSS crash course. This is more about having understandable features of Appwrite and how to build an end-to-end application. So you can see there are sign-up files, nothing much, just a few class names, a whole lot of class names up there, and just the basic HTML is there. That's all it is. Okay, so I hope you got this part. Okay, now moving on. So how we're going to move forward, let's open up the source first and foremost, and we'll be going into app.js. This is what we have. Okay, I would usually like to name that as app.jsx, but this is also fine. Okay, first we need to import a few things from the browser router. So let's go ahead and say I want to import some stuff, and they are going to be coming up from React router DOM. Okay, so what are all the things? First is browser router, obviously. We also need route, and we also need routes. These are helpful in routing any application, what we have. Now we also need a few components. So let's go ahead and create those components first, and then we're going to come back up here. Otherwise, this is going to yell at me that, hey, this is not available or something. So inside the source, I would love to do that from the console because it's much more easier. So I'm going to be going and say, hey, let's go ahead and create a directory, and that should go inside the source, and let's call this as components. And inside the component, we'll be creating a few files itself. So these are the file, basically all the components that we have. Let me go ahead and create that. So this will be, first is login.jsx. We'll be needing that. We'll be also needing profile.jsx. We'll be needing signup, of course, JSX. And what else we need? To do form. To do form. .jsx. So to do form is there. To do's are not there. So to do's .jsx. Did we miss any? Okay, so first of all, user will land up on sign up, then he will go on to login, maybe then the profile is handled up here. Inside the profile, we'll be having a to-do form that will take input, and to-dos will display all the to-do. Okay, so I think we are all done and sorted for this one. except one thing, that this all needs to go inside this file. So I need to just copy all of this. I'll copy this hopefully, and we need to move into a directory. So we'll be going with the CD. So let's go ahead into CD. First going up there, let me paste that and going back here. So that needs to be touch. There we go. Should be all happy now. So inside the components, we have all these files available there. Okay, nice and easy. Now, already I am into this directory, which is components. So let's go one directory app. And we need also configuration for Appwrite. So let me go ahead and say that we'll be going and putting up a file into src. I'm already in that. So we need to create a directory Appwrite, and inside that we'll be creating Appwrite and regular JS. Okay, need to create a directory first, my bad. Appwrite, and now I can go ahead and create a file into Appwrite, appwrite.js. Okay, I think directory-wise structure, we are all good. We have an Appwrite, we have all the components being loaded up. Let's start with a simple sign up, because that's where I want to route the users first. Okay, so I don't think I have any snippet installed. So no, let me go ahead and install the snippet. I would love to have a React snippet. Okay, so finally I got this one up here. So the previous extension didn't work, so I installed the first one, and I think that should be all good. This is a new machine I got. Okay, so RFCE, React functional component. Okay, that is all great. And we should be all happy and good for that. So sign up, I think all good. That's what we have. Okay, now I can go into app.js and can have all these import statement up here. First, let's go ahead and bring in the sign up. So we'll be saying sign up component is there. And now I can reroute this one. So we don't need all of this. Let's go ahead and remove all of this. We will be routing our application itself. So let's go ahead and have the browser router just like that. And inside the browser router, we need to have the routes. So we'll be saying routes. There we go. And inside the routes, we can have the routes. So the first route that we have is a self-closed component itself. And in this, we'll be first mentioning what is the path that we want to go. So first, a path that I want to go is slash. This is where the login component will be mounted. So we need to press the element. There we go. And we'll be having the elements like this. Okay, so let me go ahead and also use similar thing for login as well. So login component is also there. So I can now import login as well. There we go. So the first and foremost is the login component itself. So let me load in the login component. There we go. Okay, similarly, we need to have an element for sign up. Let's duplicate this one. And this one will go on sign up. And let's see that. Okay, so sign up. There we go. Okay, so this should be all good to at least test our application. Let's see that how it is working. So npm start should be giving up an, yep, I want to give you all the permission. No worries at all. Okay, so login component is mounting in and sign up is also mounting in. Okay, great. I know white colors are there. You don't like that. Okay, moving on. So this is all good. Now we need to work on that, how we can use Appwrite and create a login and sign up. We'll start with a sign up itself because that is the most easiest one to deal with that. First, let's go ahead and check out what all we need for the Appwrite itself, because this is an Appwrite config. I think I should rename this one. That makes more sense. So this is majorly an Appwrite config. So let me rename. You can put it up Appwrite as well, no problem at all, but Appwrite config makes more sense. So first and foremost is you need to import some stuff. So we'll be importing some stuff from Appwrite itself. Now what all you'll be needing to do as sign up itself, or first to do the config. We'll be needing a client, that is for sure. We also need account to make sure the users are signed up or not. And we also need database. In case you are using storage or something, you can actually go ahead and use that as well. Now, moving further down the road, let's go ahead and create a client, and that client is going to come as an object from new client. There we go. Okay, so what all this client can do. Now, this client actually sets your endpoint. If you remember in the Appwrite itself, I walked you through. Let me first change this to dark mode. I know this is paining you. So in case you remember, I told you that in the settings, we need to set up this project ID and API endpoint. This is exactly what we need. So let me copy this as first as project ID and endpoint. So we'll be needing endpoint first. Copy that. Move back up here. So this client has a lot of methods. You can see there is a call and config and all of that. There is one which is a set endpoint. So there are set endpoints that you can go ahead and do that. So what is first and foremost is the endpoint. So this is our endpoint. We copied it from the project itself, and we can further chain it down to set project as well. We can go ahead and add this as a project. Let's go back and give it a project ID. And that's it. That's all it takes. Let me go ahead and word wrap that. There we go. So this is all it takes to have a client setup. Now we need to export this as well so that other can use that. So we're going to say export const account, if I can write that, there we go, is equals to new account and client. And again, this is coming up exactly line by line from their documentation. I'm not doing anything extraordinary here. We also need a reference to database as well. In case you have bucket or anything, you need a reference of that as well. Let's go ahead and say export const databases. That is going to come up from new. Remember, we imported the databases as well. In case you watch it up here, this is where it is coming up from. It also takes two property. Again, it says the client and the database ID. So we're going to go ahead and say, hey, we already have this client, which we just created. Everything in Appwrite comes up through the client itself. And then we have to pass on this database string. We don't know what that is. So we'll go into database. This is the database. In the setting, we get the database ID. So copy that and paste that. Usually this goes into environment variable, but this time it is fine. It is fine totally to have that. Okay. So the settings for the Appwrite is all done. Now we'll be going into the sign up. So first and foremost, how does the user actually sign up into this? So let's go ahead and work on with that. So first and foremost, we'll be using a use state as well. So let's go ahead and say we want to use a state. So there we go, because states are going to be required in this one. And what do we need? If you remember from the Appwrite, we have this client up here, and client is giving you this account and whole lot of details like that. And also we have this account. This account is responsible for creating the account. So we'll be importing this one. Let's go ahead and import this one. So we'll be saying, hey, I want to import account. And that one is going to come up from one directory back into the Appwrite. And we have this Appwrite config. Okay. And we also navigate the user forcefully sometimes because this is a sign up. So let's go ahead and import that as well. So we want to import use navigate, navigate, and that is going to come up from router, React router DOM. Okay, and we also need a UUID because when we create a user, we want to pass on a unique ID, and that is going to come up from UUID. So that one is going to be simple v4 as UUID. Okay, again, this is coming up from the UUID documentation, doing no magic at all. Okay, first and foremost, let's set up that how we are going to use this navigate. I already created a detailed in-depth video of using the router, but in case you don't have an idea, no worries, I'll walk you through here. So we'll be first creating a navigate by using this use navigate. And that's it. Now you can use this navigate to navigate user onto any page at all. We also need some states because we are signing up the user. So we need to pass on some information as well. Let's go ahead and say that I want to go ahead and get this user. So we obviously need to have a set user. And we need to use a state here. Use a state. There we go. Now this state is a big object. What does it have? It has name. It has email, and it has a password, and not like that. There we go. So we have all of this, and in case you want to check that how your application is doing, you can actually go ahead and do a console log of the user. Now I won't be doing that. I would be rather writing the code for sign up of the user. So how does the sign up actually works? Now you'll be surprised to know that how simple it is to sign up the user. So in the Appwrite itself, what you get is simply a promise. So everything in the Appwrite is based on promise. So all you got to do is, if you remember, we got this account. This was coming from the Appwrite config. Remember this? If you look up its documentation, it's actually very straightforward itself. So all you got to do is have this account, and it has a lot of methods. Notice here it has a create anonymous, email session, just like Firebase. I find it very, very closely to that. And so all I have to do is use this simple create method. And once you have this create method, notice it says user ID is required, and then you can pass on email and password, and it will return you a promise, and rest of the things it will take care automatically. Let's pass on this. So obviously first thing is user ID. That's what the string is. And we are generating the user ID from the UUID. So we'll be saying, hey, UUID. And we'll be saying, we can directly go ahead and say v4 and just like this. That should work. But let me go ahead and see that this one is bad. UUID v4. Okay. Now we are having this UUID. Did I wrote it correctly? UUID v4. Let me copy this and paste this. Again, there are many ways of how you can implement this. All you got to do is generate a unique ID. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so now we have this state user. So we'll be fetching and pushing everything inside this one. Let's pass on other information that we have. So we'll be saying user.email. We'll be also sending user.password, and we'll be sending user.name. So these are all the fields that we are collecting up here. Now, once you have done this, then after that, what happens is this is all going to create a user a sign up. Now we need to actually put this inside a method so that we can actually call this method. So let me go ahead and cut this out, because this is what the Appwrite part is. Let's cut this out and create a method. So let's go ahead and create a method, sign up user. And this method, since it's talking to a database, obviously it needs to be async. And this will be taking an event, and then we can go ahead and fire it up like this. Whenever anything such comes up like that, we want to go ahead and just first and foremost, we want to prevent default. There we go. Nice and easy. And then we can go ahead and paste this one. So once the default is prevented, now we have created a promise. This is going to make sure that we pass on, run this method. This creates a promise. Once the promise is being done and we have returned this, let me go ahead and close this one up here. So we'll be saying, hey, promise, you can now show me the result of all of this. So the result of this then is actually given to you in a function usually. So this is kind of a callback, you can say. And what you get from that is a response. And this is again coming line by line from its documentation. So we can go ahead and console log this as a response so that we can see what all is coming in. Maybe you want to do something more, but rather precisely if this is a success, then we want to use this navigate. If you remember, this is the navigate that we created, and this can actually navigate to you or to user at any of the page. We would like to go ahead, and if this is success, we would like to go directly on profile. Maybe you want to redirect him onto a login page or something. That's totally up to you. And this is a function that is returned to you in case of everything goes great, but there is also a function that you need to handle. And this is for error. So if error comes out, this is how you handle it here. And we can go ahead and simply say we want to have a login. And again, there are two of these callbacks. There we go. We can go ahead and say a console log. And in this, let's just dump up the error. So this is a case of failure. Okay, there we go. So now we have handled, and I told you, this is really simple. All we got to do is this much of the code is responsible for creating a new user. That's all it is. Okay. Now, obviously we need to write some of this sign up user and all of that. So for this, I have already given you a file, files.jsx, and this is where the entirety of the sign up comes in. So we'll be just copying it from here till all the way back up here. And don't worry, I'll walk you through with the file as well. There is nothing much complex into this file. We'll be replacing it, this sign up with this one. Okay. Now, majorly what we have here is a whole lot of this classes from the Tailwind CSS. And this is all what is going on. So let me walk you through with that what are more important part of it. So there is nothing much. We're using a method post and all of that. The important part is name. So we need to take this name. Once we are taking this name, obviously, we need to update our state according to that. So let's go ahead and do that. First for the name. So obviously this should actually fire up on change event. So an event is happening, and for that we are firing this up, and we'll be calling a set user method there. And what state we need to update. So we'll be just expanding the user already, whatever all information is there. And then we'll be saying that name should be filled up by e.target.value. There we go. So rest of the things, the name and everything are already there. So this is what we need to update all of this. And we can actually copy this because this is almost exactly the same that we'll be going through and using it. Okay, so this is for the name. Now let's go ahead and do same for email. So once we are on to email, let's go ahead and paste this one. Again, we'll be using set user, expand. This time, go ahead and target email, and we'll be getting e.target.value. Okay, so I think that is all what we have. And we have one more password, forgot that. Let's paste that. And for the password also, same, we just need to update password. We definitely could create a method and call this again and again with different values, but I think this is all what we have. Now, the most important part is when you do a sign in or a sign up, whatever you want to call this one, I think sign up would be better. So let's go ahead and call this one as sign up. Small update. Now, here comes the interesting part is we want to run a method on this one. So that can be done on click. There we go. And the method was, forgot that. The method was sign up user. Copy that. And we want to pass on a reference. There we go. Sign up user. There we go. So that's all what we got to do. And again, for your assignment, I have actually given you this, or continue with Google and stuff. So you need to read and implement. These are very, very easy. So this is all what we'll be doing. Now let's go ahead onto the web page itself and see that how this is going up. So onto the sign up, it says response is not defined. Let me see that where the response is written. Okay, so again, we don't want to cancel that and search that. Where is response? Oops. What was the error? Response. It should be response. Should be there, all good, no result. Okay, should be all good now. Okay, still there are a couple of errors. Let me see that. Okay, so on line number 27, it is also there. Yep, response should be saved. Line number 27, yep, response. Copy that, paste that. Should be good now. And yep, we are all good. So we are still seeing a lot of big ones. So we need to fix up this. Let's go into app. Index.css is there. I think we are importing some CSS. Yep, app.css is there. So let me go ahead and fix this one. Okay, so there was a small Tailwind bug. I forgot to actually do that. So let me walk you through with that. So if you go into the Tailwind, actually we just stopped it up here. But there is one more thing. In order to make sure that Tailwind actually processes all of this thing, we actually need to import this line, and I completely forgot that. So again, this is how the real world development works. You need to see that also. Copy that, move into up here, and all we got to do is add that into your content and save that. And this is going to fix up rest of the thing. So yes, here is your beautiful web page. Again, these links are not going to be working. We just have the name, email, ID, password, and all of that. Let's go ahead and give it a try if it is working or not, or we need to debug more. So let's go into the console. So let me go ahead and add this up. So name Hitesh at lco.dev, not comma, .dev, and let's add Hitesh 123. Okay, so this is all what we have. Let's go ahead and try to sign up. And this is redirecting me to profile. This is exactly what we thought. It also giving me all these IDs. So created at, ID, updated at, email, verification, false. this should actually, in theory at least, add a new user. And there we go. Hitesh at lco.dev is the new user. I can actually see and manage this user a lot more. So I hope you can see that how much membership and all of that is going into this one. Sessions, activity, there's a lot more, lots of information. Okay, so I hope you got the idea of a little bit of a buggy process as well. Don't want to remove this because this is how everything works. Okay, so now the sign up works. Obviously, next step is login as well, because login should be very, very similar and should be really easy. I highly recommend you to go ahead and give it a try. Now, login is also fairly simple, not too much, but let me walk you through with that part as well. First, let's bring up something from this one. So we'll be using just the account from it. We'll be using use state and we'll be using use navigate. So let's bring up these two lines. Come up here, paste. Obviously, we'll be using state. That is obvious, very obvious now. Okay, so we have state, account, and use navigate. So these are the two things we'll be using. So how does the login works? First and foremost, same thing. We want to navigate the user. Once somebody has logged in successfully, we want to redirect him onto a certain page. Okay, that's obvious. We also want to store a state. So this state is almost going to be same. So we can actually bring this code back into here. The only thing this time is we are not worried about names. So let's go ahead and remove this part. So we have just email and password. And just like previously, we'll be creating a same method. So let me walk you through that how this works. Again, then we'll be cutting this method out and creating a method for that. Okay, so the way how it works is you simply go ahead and try catch that. This is again coming up from the documentation. You can go ahead and do an async and all of that. That is fine, but this is a proper way of doing it as mentioned in the documentation. So again, we bring up this account. Remember, this is the account that we are bringing up from the Appwrite config. And then in order to log in, we have this create email session. And this session is actually, they call it as, and they term it as a login. And all you got to do is here, just pass on two things, your email and the password. We are storing that email into user.email and we are storing this password into user.password. Rest of the matching and everything, we don't have to worry actually at all. We just got to do that. If the user is successfully doing that, then in that case, we'll be just navigating the user onto a profile. Slash profile would be better. And in case there is any error, we're going to go ahead and just dump them onto the console log because we are just building a demo app. This is all what we got to do. And again, just like always, we are going to cut this out and put that into a method. So let's just go ahead and say login user. And obviously this is going to talk to database. So async, this is going to handle an event just like that. First and foremost, we go ahead and always prevent default just like that. And then we simply go ahead and do a try catch. That's all it takes. Now, obviously, then we have to do is a login. So shouldn't be much difficult since we already have this file, files.jsx. You can find that again into the Git repository, which will be linked in the description section. Okay, quite a long one. Let's go ahead and copy this and do a login and paste this up. There we go. Okay, so we have this login entirely. Okay, so this shouldn't be much difficult to understand at all. I know there is a lot of files available up here, but they are exactly kind of the same. So notice here, all these classes that comes up from Tailwind. And then we have this email address. Email address has all of this. Only thing that is required is now this onChange method. In that, we handle an event, just like always. And we go ahead and do this. So we call this set user, which is a state. And inside this, we go ahead and first expand the existing state. Okay. And then we need to just add an email. That email will be coming up from event.target.value. There we go. And we can actually grab a password in similar way. So copy that. And this is the password field. Go ahead and add the password up here. So we'll be saying password event.target.value. Okay, so the password is also here. Now we need to just go ahead and log in a user. So for that, we'll be copying this user login method. And as soon as login is there, so this is the button for login, we will be going ahead and saying on click, and we'll be saying login user. That's all it takes. Okay, so should be all good and easy. Now we should be actually able to see that if the user is successfully there, he should be able to create an account and have that. Okay, so let me go up here. And this time we can actually go ahead and move on to profile. Right now we are not checking anything into the profile. We'll be doing that soon. Let's go up here. So this is our email address and password. So I forgot what it was my password. So let's try that. And what did I used? And apparently not. I need to sign up. Let's go into sign up and create another account. So we'll be saying Hitesh and tab Hitesh1 @lco.dev, and we'll be saying, let's go ahead. Hopefully this time I'll remember my password, and let's sign up. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a login this time. We should be able to redirect onto that. So we'll be saying lco.dev, and yep, this time I remember hopefully my password. And there we go. We are able to successfully log in there. In case you're finding any issue, go ahead and do a console log of that. Okay, so the login part is also done. Now we need to handle the profile part. So let's go ahead and handle that. That would be really fun to understand this part. Okay, I hope you can see that now login and everything is so easy using the Appwrite itself. Now let's go ahead and work on the profile. Okay, first, let's bring up a couple of things from the sign up itself. So we are going to need navigation. We are going to use the account as well. So let's bring up both of them and move into the profile. There we go. And there we go. Okay, we don't need just the use navigate. We will be using some of the links as well. So let's go ahead and bring in the link as well. Okay, so now there are a couple of more to-do forms and to-dos as well. Let's go ahead and populate them as well. So this is to-do form and this is a to-dos. So there we go. So we have to-dos and to-do form. Okay. Now what we need to do is in the profile, first of all, we need to validate whether the user is logged in or not. And if he's logged in, he is a proper user from the backend side or not. And for that, we'll be using this use navigate. So we can bring this up from sign up. Just this would be enough. Copy that and paste that up. Okay, now let's go ahead and get a user details. So we'll be storing that into a state. So we can actually go ahead and use a shortcut of use state snippet. So this one is going to be user details, set user details, and this one is going to be empty at the start. Okay, now when do I want to query my database or Appwrite and want to get this one? As soon as the profile loads. So I'll be saying, let's go ahead and use effect snippets. And inside that, there is no dependency. So that means as soon as it loads up, I want to just check out some of the things. Let's go ahead and remove all of this. How do we do that? So this is where account actually comes into the picture again. Notice here, we got this account. So according to the documentation, you can actually go ahead and create a data variable that will be simply account.get. Now, if a session is there, a login session is there, which was also created at the time of creating the account, you get that also. Then you will get some data from this account.get. Yep, that's simple. Really, really simple. Then you can use this get data. And this get data has a lot of functions. It majorly works on two of them. The first one is then, and there is a catch also, but then actually works absolutely fine. So in this then, we are going to go ahead and it returns you two of the functions, one success, one really bad thing. That means nobody exists there. So we go ahead and say, I want to have response. And if response is there, then you can go ahead and just use this set user details and pass on all the response data into this one. Okay, I hope this is exactly, yep, this is exactly. And another part is where you handle error, means data doesn't exist. So in that case, you go ahead and simply say function, I was thrown away with an error. And in that case, we go ahead and console log that. And maybe you want to do something more, so go ahead and do that. Again, this is a really simple one. Okay, so this is going to run because we are using this use effect hook. And again, in case you are using the latest of React, make sure you use all the tricks that are being around on the YouTube. Okay, Enough of the hint. Now moving on, let's also work out, because this is a profile section, we will be having a button of logout. So it's important that we go ahead and do a logout. Again, same way. First, we are going to see that how it is being done in the Appwrite. Then we are going to wrap it around inside a method. So again, this also go with the try and catch method. So first and foremost, you go ahead and do an await, because obviously we'll be doing an async. That's why it's coming a little bit earlier. So account dot, and all you got to do is run delete session. Yep, that's it. And then we can go ahead and pass on a session ID. So we can go ahead and session ID. It actually accepts strings, and there are a lot of strings available. You can go ahead and check this out into the documentation. One that I found useful after a little bit of the dig up is current. The current session is deleted now. And once this is done, then we can use the navigate and can navigate the user onto the slash. And in case of all the errors, then we can go ahead and just say console log the error. There we go. And again, this needs to be wrapped inside a function. So again, just like always, we are going to cut this out and we're going to call this one as handle log out. And this one is obviously async. You saw that already coming in. We don't need to wait for an event because no value is being passed on. So we can just go ahead and work with that. And there we go. Again, since it is an async, it needs to be a wait. That is why it is there. Okay, so this is all what we have. Now let's go ahead and work on with this profile part now. So remember, we have already given you this files.jsx, and this is a profile component. So we can actually go ahead and copy this, and I can walk you through with that. That would be so much easier for you to understand. Okay, not here in the profile.jsx. We can just go ahead and place this up, and we can select all of this and uncomment that. So what is happening? First and foremost, we are doing an empty component up here. Then notice we have this state here, user details. So this state either doesn't exist, means this is totally empty, or there are some values. So if this user detail is present, do something. If it is not present, do something. So if it is present, then we are simply going ahead and saying, hello Hitesh. Instead that, we can actually go ahead, you can do a console log of user details, what all the things are available in there. One thing that we have populated while creating the user is the name. You can find an email or something there as well, but this is what we have. We also have a button of logout. So obviously you get this idea. So we can have a simple on click on this one, and that one will be handle logout. There we go. Now again, in the other cases, we are actually importing this to-do form and to-dos. Right now, they are not doing anything. So we are just importing that. And this is all is happening. This whole set is happening if the user details are present. In case they are not present, then we are simply going ahead and putting up a link that, hey, go ahead and do a login first. So that's all. That's all the profile is. Again, the important part is not what is happening inside this. This is just a JSX. The important part that for which you are here to learn is from here till the here. I hope you got that. Save that and let's go back up here. And if I reload, now right now there is no profile and everything. So let me go ahead and reload that. Are we loading this onto /profile? Let me go ahead and quickly check that. So profile.jsx, app.js. We don't have a profile route for this one. So we need to create one. So let's go ahead and have this on /profile. And the element that is going to load is profile. There we go. Should be all good now. Okay. Use state is not defined. To-do form, to-do is not defined. Okay, no worries. We'll first have a fix for use state. And then we need to import the to-do form and to-do. So let's go ahead and do that. So that should be to-do form. And there should be a to-do. And to-dos. Let's see if it is all good or we need to have. So to-do form and to-dos should be good now. Let's go ahead and see that. Use effect. Okay, one more. So let's go ahead and say use effect. Okay, so there we go. So right now it says hello Hitesh 1 because that's what is logged in as of now. So this gives an idea, or actually what we can do is we can console log this one so that you get more idea of what all user details are there. So during this get data, set user details are there. And we can actually dump out this user details. Let's go ahead and do that. User details. And we'll walk you through that what all actually comes up. So from the console log, you get an object. And into this object, you have email verification, the name is coming in, the password update is coming in, phone verify. So you have some prefs as well. So there is a lot of things that are coming in. Whatever you are interested in, you can actually go ahead and select that. Just like we created this name property, you can actually go ahead and create more properties. Okay, so this is all the basic that we have. Now we have to work on another thing, which is how we can add some data. So let's go ahead and work on to-do form. So the authentication part is all done for the Appwrite. Now let's go ahead and work on for to-do form itself. Okay, so to-do form is really easy. All we got to do is, if you remember, now we are interacting with the database. So far we have interacted with this user section. This is all what the settings and everything. Now we need to interact with database. So first thing that is going to be required for that is databases. And if you remember, these databases, this is what I'm talking about. So we have already created an ID for the databases. So this part of the database to-dos and its setting, remember EA6, whatever that is, this is the exactly same. So we have gone through and now we have access to this database. Now inside this database, we want to have a collection here, and this collection has a unique ID. So we'll be using this to actually create a document of to-do it is. And it's just a string. You can make it as complex as you like. I like to copy this so that I can use it up here. Now into the to-do form, we will be using it. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and use profile, I think. We actually need a UUID. Sign up would be better. Yep. Let's go ahead and kind of use navigate. We won't be using, let's grab one by one. So we definitely want a UUID to create unique IDs into the form. So let's go ahead and grab that. We'll be needing databases. So instead of account, we'll be needing databases. Copy that and have this one. We will be going for databases. This is all good and fine. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Now, obviously, this to do is just a string. So we want to store that into a state. Let's go ahead and first do that. Use state. There we go. Let's create a state. Use a state. There we go. And this one, let's call this as to do. And this one by default is going to be an empty string. There we go. Okay, now we need to talk to database and create a document into it. And you will be surprised how simple that is. Okay, now that you have understood how this is being done, let's go ahead and directly create a method, which is going to be handle submit. So whenever somebody adds a database or add a to-do, hit submit, this is where this method is going to run. Obviously, we are taking some values, so event needs to trigger on. And then we can go ahead and first of all, if event is coming up, we need to have a prevent default. This is kind of a de facto standard. Always do this. Now, what we have to do is use this databases that we have, and it has a lot of methods. I hope there is no brainer here. Create document, delete document. Like, I don't know if there is anything much more simpler than this. So let's go ahead and use create document. Now, where should I create the document? The collection ID is there, and then the document ID needs to be there. And then you can send up all of the data that you have. So this is my collection ID, a really good reference up there. So let me walk you through with that. Create document. There we go. So this is collection ID, then document ID. So collection ID goes into a string. Make sure you remember that. Then you need to pass on a document ID, which is not a string. We struggled a lot while creating this example. This is not a string. This is a ID itself. So for that, this UUID v4 helps you to create that. And then after this, you need to go ahead and pass on your data. Now, this data is actually an object that you have to pass on. They don't define this much clearly. I think there should be much more easier way of doing that. But again, hey, not complaining too much. And there in this object, I'll pass on this to do, which is being stored inside my state. And that's it. That's it. That's all it takes to create a kind of a new entry into database. Let's hold that into a variable. So we're going to call this one as promise, because that's what everything is, or majority of the thing is in the Appwrite. Okay, moving further on to this. So then we are going to go ahead and say promise. And we can simply say den. And I'm pretty sure by this time you are all familiar with what all the two values this is going to return. So we'll be saying function and function response. Yeah, response is going to come in. And then we can go ahead and do a console log and a response. There we go. And similar to this, we need to handle the error part as well. By this time, we should be creating a method for this one because this whole thing is same. So we can actually wrap this up inside a method and make life a little bit easier. But hey, I'll leave that as an exercise for you. Okay. Now, once this is all done, that means the submit is done. At this point, what I want to do is I want to reload this entire thing so that states are being refreshed. You can actually clear your state. There are a lot of methods how you can handle this. Once this is all done, what I would like to do is I would like to call window and I would say location window.location and I would like to reload this. Now again, there are a variety of methods. You can actually clean up your state, call another method so that the bottom page refreshes this to-do form. There are a lot of ways how to handle this one. Right now we're handling it this way, but again, feel free to handle it in different way. Okay, nice and easy. Now coming back onto our files, which is, so this is the to-do component that we have, to-do form component. Really short one, nothing much is there. And we'll be replacing it with our Tailwind component. Okay, so again, action, there is nothing much because this is a form. So this form needs to be doing things on a submit and we'll be saying handle submit. So this is our method that we created, handle submit. And we need to put up this input. So this is the most important part, which is the input. Let's go ahead and use an on change event on this. Obviously, we are handling an event. So we need to go ahead and call set to do. Is it set to do? Let me go ahead and check that. Yep, that's a set to do, not to do's. So set to do, and there we will be saying, oops, event.target.value. There we go. So I think that should be enough. And we have this add button, type a submit, should be all good by this point of time. Okay, let's see. And we have all of this. So this is an enter to do. So we'll be saying my first to do. If I add this to do, this obviously is reloading the page. Not really the best way of doing the things. We can actually handle it nicely. I would love to see in the comment section how you can handle it differently so that this reload doesn't happen. Okay, now let's go into the document and let me first go up into the documents so we can see that no document actually came in because I created this one, but I forgot one thing, which is attribute. No, attribute is here. So document should be coming up. Okay, so looks like we are messing up something. Okay, so after a little bit of debugging, that's how the real world development works. You need to debug your projects as well. So how did it work? And let me walk you through with all the process that I did. First and foremost, yes, after a lot of console logs. So first and foremost, the issue was that I somehow actually remember that I was doing this, but somehow I missed it. I don't know. So once you are into the database, into the to-dos, we have this collection. So inside this collection, you need to set up this role all. I think I mentioned it. I vaguely remember it, but I don't know when it was the time of recording or previously making the project. So you need to make a role colon all. In case you don't have this, just go ahead and say role colon all. And once you put up a space bar, it comes up like that. And then you have to update and that's it. The collection will be successfully updated. Then I noticed that in case when I do this window.location.reload, this was making some issues in my project, but when I did it previously before recording this was not making any issue. So I changed it to event.target.reset. This also empties out all the form. I even tried to do that via set to do. Was not quite working for me. So whatever worked, that's the best thing. So after that, what we tried out is, let's just say my to do, and I go ahead and add this up. It gets added and it gets emptied the field. Also, I can go ahead and see into documents and I see if I hit a reload that my to-do gets added. So that's all. And again, the rest of the things are same. I even try to recreate the attributes. and I made it required an array. It didn't work out. Just required or not required doesn't really matter. So this is what we have done. So now we have learned that how we can have entries into the database. Now we need to learn how we can read that, because this to-do form is all about how we can add data into the Appwrite. So this is what we have done. Really simple create document. I'm pretty sure I might be making some mistake because it's late at night. That usually happens. So this is what we have done. Now we need to learn that how we can actually read some data. And this is where the to-dos are going to come in. So in order to make sure that we have this to-dos, which is more about reading the documents, let's go ahead and work on with that. And let me first import, what do we need? Account, not databases we need. So to-do form, please give me the database. So copy that, to-dos, give me the database. We will also be needing use effect. So use state, obviously to manage the state, and we'll be needing use effect to reload, or as soon as this component mounts, we want some information to be coming from the Appwrite itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and say I want to use state. And first one is going to be to-dos. This time a list of to-dos are coming in. By default, this is an empty. Let's go ahead and say we want to use another state. And this one is going to be a simple loader, because as the time we are querying to the database or to Appwrite, we want to go ahead and say false. There we go. Okay. Now, first and foremost, we want that as soon as this component mounts, we want to have a database to be loaded up. All the to-dos to be loaded up, basically. So we'll be going for use effect. There we go. And this will be based on nothing at all, so empty. So it should be loaded on just the first time, nothing else. Now, coming up onto the part that how we can actually go ahead and fetch up this document. So this is the database. You have already seen how easy it is. Inside this use effect, we want to run a method. So that is same again, databases. And notice here, just like create document, we have list document, and that's it. You have to mention that what document is you're trying to list. So whatever you're trying to add values in it, it's the same document. So we can actually go ahead and copy this and just paste it, that this is the document I'm trying to get a list from. It would be better if I store that into a variable or something. That would be really nice. Now I want to do this, but before that, I want to set my loader as true because I'm querying to Appwrite. So that's what this is. And once I have all of this, then I can go ahead and store this all into a variable. So let's go ahead and say, let's call this as get to-dos, and let's store that into a variable. Now, as soon as this get to-dos actually go ahead and work with that, why is this here? We don't need you. So once this is all being done, then this get to-dos obviously returns you a promise. So get to-dos. This returns you a promise, and with the promise, you are quite familiar now that it returns you a two method that you need to handle. The first one being a good statement, or you can say a true response. And in that case, all you got to do is call up your set to-dos. Inside this response, you can go ahead and kind of dump this response to see what all comes up. The first one, the document property is what we are needing because that's an array. We can store this up. And once you have this one, that's pretty much it. You can also handle the error part by using the same function. We'll be saying error. We are not handling errors gracefully, but I think you can do that on your own. Okay, so this is what we have. Now, as soon as this component mounts up, we will have something in our to-dos, otherwise our loader will be active. Okay, so once that is all done, we need to also set our loader false. So once all of this is being run, get to-dos, we have set up everything. Now let's go ahead and say set loader and let this loader actually come into false. Okay, so this is all done. Now we have all the data in the to-dos. All we got to do is loop through them. So for that, we have this files.jsx. And finally, this to-dos are up here. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it up in to-dos. And there we go. Okay, so how this is all going to work? Really simple. The first thing is that we have this loader coming in. So if the loader is true, then we want to display just the loading. We don't have any spinner or something as of now, but this is all. And if the loader has done its job, that means loader is false, then we are going to go ahead and display the to-do. So this is the item that we have. Obviously, we have to loop through it. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut this part, because this is the component that we want to loop through again and again. So we'll cut through this part, and let's go ahead and run some JavaScript on that. So we have this state which says to-dos, and if to-dos are present, then we are going to go ahead and just do something more. So let me go ahead and hit enter. Then we are going to say to-dos dot let's map through all the to-dos. In each of this, you'll find an item. And with that item, make sure you don't use curly braces here. Otherwise, you have to return the statement, use the parenthesis so that we have something up here. In this case, we are going to go ahead and paste this entire JSX that we have so that it loops through all the values up here. Okay, so I think this is all good. What we have is item. Did you mean, okay, looks like we are missing up this one. An unwanted enter was there. Let me try Command Z couple of times. Okay, couple of times. Okay, so now this should be happy with this. I think probably some indentation problems are there. Let's try it one more time. Then we'll have to-dos dot map. And once we have this map, then we are going to have an item. And if the item is there, then we are going to go ahead and use a JSX expression. Inside this JSX expression, I think that's nice. I was probably missing one parenthesis there. Okay, this is all good. Now we have this div, which is going to keep on repeating. If this div is repeating, that needs to have a key for performance reasons, obviously. So we'll have each item. Each item has a $ID because each of the document actually gets that via our UUID. And instead of having this item, let's wrap this up and say item dot and whatever your attribute name is. In my case, it is to do, so your can be different. Since we are also having this delete item, we need to write a method so that delete button can be handled. But as of now, let's see if the things are working fine or not. Okay, so we can see all the another test and everything. One item that's missing is delete. So let's go ahead and work on with that. So for the delete, shouldn't be much hard to actually delete. Let's go ahead and write a method for that. Here should be fine. Let's go ahead and say const, and we'll say delete to do. And once we just delete this to do, we'll be having an ID, and there we go. Okay, so now what we got to do is again call these databases, and then we'll be saying delete document. Which document you want to delete? Now again, in order to delete the document, you have to pass on the ID of that, and ID will be grabbing for that particular. But this whole operation is performed onto this. So this is the document, and don't worry, it's not going to delete the entire document. This is going to just take the document and will say that, hey, you want to delete something from this document, go ahead and pass me an ID of that. That's what the sense of this. Okay, so don't you worry, this is not going to delete the entire thing. This is going to delete the ID. From this document, delete this particular value or attribute. So from here, we are going to pass on this ID. Okay. And obviously, this is all done. So let's store that into a variable. Promise. And that is there. Okay, moving further. Again, the same thing. I think I can copy this because this is all what we have. Copy this, paste that again. This time, this is not. This is promise. This is a familiar syntax. And we'll be saying promise, and this is all good. Should be able to delete this. We don't need any set to do. We can actually do a console log of this one. So copy that and paste that. Copy that, paste that. Okay, should be all good. The only thing that we need to do now is once all of this is done, we probably need to reload this window as well. So we're going to say window dot location dot reload. If this doesn't work, I'll give you that as an assignment. Okay, I think I did a mistake in the earlier. I didn't put up this parenthesis. Let me check that. We'll check that later on. First of all, let's call this method so that it actually can delete of some of the values. So let's go up here. This should be on click. Since we need to pass on an ID, we need to run up a callback method just like that. This one is delete to do, and we need to have an item. Each of these items have a $ID so that we can pass this on. Should be all good now. Let's go ahead and see if it can delete my to-do. There we go. Yes, we are able to delete that. Refresh the values. Let's see. Does it work? Late night. Let's go ahead and add this to-do. And are we able to see that? Yep. We need to probably reload the window. Let me give it one more try. Otherwise, I'll just leave it and do it tomorrow. Let's go ahead and have a to-do form. And window.location.reload. And we are doing here also the same. It is working here. Window.location.reload. Let's try this. Probably this time it will work. I'll comment this one. And just after this, so we are having this handle submit once everything is all done. Window.location.reload. Let's try this at try. And nope, it doesn't work. Somehow this code is giving me the errors and I'm not able to see this because obviously this is late night. And a small tip to all of you, when such thing happens, do it next day. It works always. Okay, so I think we are almost all done. Let's see what are there in the collection itself. And yep, does it work late night? Seems like. Okay, so you're going to find this entire code base and code snippet entirely into the description section and in the first comment as well. I hope you have enjoyed this late night crash course on Appwrite itself. It's a fantastic product, absolutely ready for production. In fact, we saw a lot of people using it in our hackathon as well. And we are actively using that in some of our internal projects as well. Fantastic product. Give them a star on the GitHub as well. Tweet about them. Open source project deserves your love and needs your attention. So that's it from my side. If you enjoyed this really long video, go ahead and hit that subscribe. Otherwise, no problem. I'm all up here. Let's go ahead and catch up in next video.